This is the FM Gold channel of All India Radio. In the program News Analysis, now we bring you a discussion on good governance. The participants are Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Nilab Srivastav, journalist.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi was at the Hindustan Times Leadership Summit today. The PM, while delivering his speech, while talking to the audience, spoke on so many issues, Tandon Saab. It was about the Citizenship Amendment Bill, it was on Article 370, all those steps that his government has taken in the last about 6 months since they came back to power for the second time. Tandon Saab, first of all, the most important that the PM talked was about the Citizenship Amendment Bill. Now, why is this important?
Basically, India is the country of origin of all these people who are being discussed. And if the country of origin is India, and even if they settle somewhere else, say, or by virtue of partition somewhere there in Bangladesh, or maybe because of other historic reasons they were in Afghanistan, or even for that matter in Pakistan, so if they are feeling insecure, if they have any problem, and they are looking toward the country of their origin, and that is obviously India. And therefore, the government of India, for that matter, any government in the past 70 years would have been committed to taking them back into India whenever they felt like coming to India. So I think it's a commitment which is historic, and therefore I don't think there is any major controversy, except that some political parties feel that why Muslims are being left out of this facility. The fact remains, at the time of partition, if certain areas or certain population were part of Pakistan, they opted for Pakistan, and by virtue of the Bangladesh liberation, they remained in Bangladesh. So they cannot claim that India is the country of their origin. So therefore, the distinction is being made that any Sikh, Bodh, Jain, Hindu, or for that matter anybody whose country of origin is India, they will be taken back. So I think there is an attempt to do politics on this issue because of the vote bank politics, but by and large I think the government is moving in the right direction, and it's a very important, bold step which has to be passed. That's why Cabinet has already cleared it, and now because the next week is the last week of the Parliament session, this will have to be brought before Parliament in the next week. I do hope it will be passed, because many political parties are not yet clear, particularly some regional parties, and for them it's not a matter of any vote bank, so they may be extending support to it, and I do hope that the bill will be passed in both houses of Parliament.
Tandon Saab, Prime Minister also said that the Citizenship Amendment Bill, for those people, it will also be acting as bettering their lives. This bill has been also in the manifesto of the party, even in 2014 when the first time the Narendra Modi-led government came to power, and this time also. Some of the other major decisions the Prime Minister also talked about, but this bill initially got lapsed when it was introduced in Parliament. For the benefit of our listeners, just give us a backgrounder as to how did it happen, what was the manifesto like, and now that it is nearing its conclusion.
I think this is a commitment made by the BJP, as you very rightly said, in their election manifesto to the people of India also. And now, because of the situation developing in Assam particularly, and some of the other northeast, because it was linked with infiltration of illegal migrants. So therefore the issue got confused. Now I think everything has been sorted out, but I think the Prime Minister today presented before the nation through the Hindustan Times Summit the whole gamut of the achievements of his government and the initiatives which his government has taken. And I was listening to the entire speech. The Prime Minister was very careful in not making any major policy announcement because Parliament is in session. Nor was he making any frontal attack on any opposition, barring a few references in which he said that 112 aspirational districts which have been now identified by his government for development were left out by the successive government in the past for the last 70 years. In fact, he also, taking cue from the newspaper, he said, can any newspaper afford to keep one page empty? That's exactly what happened to these 112 districts which were left out completely from the development process. So like that he gave a whole list of the initiatives which government has taken on all issues, including what we are discussing today about the Citizenship Amendment Bill.
The Prime Minister also talked about the Ram Janmabhoomi title suit dispute, which has now been decided by the Supreme Court. But today also eventually is the also December 6th when the Babri Mosque demolition, that anniversary. But we have seen all the reports reports from across the country, very normal. There has been no incident of any violence or probably any trouble anywhere. The Prime Minister said that we cannot be keeping ourselves changed in the past, and he lauded the understanding of the people at large and the courts also ensuring delivering the verdict in good time, and this controversy is now at the back burner. So how do you see this statement of his?
In fact, the Prime Minister made it a point that this verdict by the Supreme Court, the way the people of India have accepted it, because he said in the past, earlier, prior to the verdict, a lot of apprehensions were being mooted and a lot of confusion was being created as if what will happen. But the way the judiciary has given the verdict, it's a feather in judiciary's cap also. At the same time, the grace with which the people of this country, including the minority community, have accepted this judgment. So, in fact, he was appraising the maturity of the Indian society in accepting the verdict on Ram Mandir, and he said that this is not just one long pending issue which has been resolved. It is a way forward also. Similarly, about the 370 also, Article 370 abolition, he said there were apprehensions what will happen, but nothing has happened. People have accepted it, and it is for the betterment of the people of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, and that will also set the tone for their future development. So all these things which he listed, he said there has been support from the people. In fact, if you look at the beginning of the speech, he said he was asked how he got re-elected with such a thumping majority. He said because people gave them verdict. It was because Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas or Sabka Vishwas, and that is how people repose confidence in him and in his party. That is why he got this mandate. And therefore what he is doing or his government is doing is fulfilling all those promises made to the people. He said his government does not do politics for promises, but politics for delivering, to accomplish what not just promises, but governance and delivery. So I think in that chain, he also talked about the economic situation, the steps which are being taken to improve India's economic situation and make it a 5 trillion economy. And also he said that obsolete laws of the 19th and the 20th century have been thrown into waste paper basket. And he said that now whatever we are doing, in fact, I could make out one thing, whatever the Prime Minister was listing today, somehow many of these things have not got registered with the people, and that was an attempt by the Prime Minister to tell the people this is what we have done, this is where we are now moving forward, and it is all for the betterment of the society, including the downtrodden, the deprived section of the society. And then he talked of the schemes which have been launched recently, including the water conservation and water for all houses and agriculture sector, empowerment of women, emancipation of downtrodden, all sectors where the government has been focusing for the last 5.5 years. He touched upon that, and he was trying to make it a point that some of these things have not really been highlighted properly, and that's why he was trying to, in a way, give a report card of the entire achievements of his government.
Right. So while he described it as a new hope for development after the abrogation of the Article 370 and bifurcation of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh, a very specific sector and very specific subject that he talked about was about the business community, was about the banking sector, the ease of doing business, as you rightly mentioned, and he talked about the taxation regime, the fear of the taxman in the country, for investors abroad, for people who are doing business in the country, and he talked about the reduction in tax rates, a very novel scheme which is very recently in October 8, which was launched, was about the e-assessment of the income tax returns, the corporate tax reduction which the finance minister very recently brought in the parliament and which she announced as part of a press conference. So these mechanisms said that genuine business transactions, genuine business development, investment is what India is looking forward to. He also talked about the World Bank rating India in a better position for doing business in this country. So that is where I believe is also a thrust area for this government.
Certainly, because the economy is a key sector, and he was listing what his government has been doing in the past couple of months and earlier also. And in that context, he talked of the merger of banks and empowering the bank to make them more powerful, and in that context, the taxation reduction, he said. He listed whole gamut of the economic reforms which his government is undertaking and his policy also. He said all these economic steps and reforms are aimed at making India a 5 trillion economy, and it is being acknowledged by the world community. Ease of doing business in India jumped quite a lot in the queue, and he got compliments from abroad. And so he said that in that context, whatever is necessary for taking India forward, This government is trying to do that. And he said he is not one of those who will be shirking from responsibility. He said all these problems which his government is facing have been, there over the years. And they have not cropped up suddenly. So he will not be running away from his responsibility of correcting things. And that is exactly what he is doing.
The Prime Minister did say that the government should have a pressure to perform better. One of the thrust areas or key areas that this government has also worked upon is hitting at the corruption part of it. So he also mentioned in a very lighter note, which evoked a lot of laughter from the audience, that there are certain amount of bureaucrats that this government has made to forcibly retire. Probably they quipped that people who could have done so much job in so many years have done it early and we have asked them to go home. So that was his direct message to all those people that we mean business. We want to ensure that all the development schemes, the flagship schemes of the government are implemented and the results are seen on the ground. And we have in the past seen so many different departments forcibly sending bureaucrats out, asking them not to, giving them golden handshake kind of a thing. Turns out this is also one important thrust area for the government.
No, right from the beginning, that has been the thrust area of Modi government, zero tolerance of corruption, which I think demonstrated amply clear. The message is loud and clear right to the bottom level. And in that context, whenever we get a news of so many revenue service officers being shunted out of service today, I think intentionally did not refer to any particular department of bureaucracy, but we all know the number of revenue service officers who have been shunted out of the service, and that sends a very clear message that he means business as far as corruption is concerned. He will not tolerate any amount of corruption in governance, and that is exactly what good governance is. Another very interesting aspect Prime Minister touched upon was some of his innovative ideas of holding conferences outside Delhi. And in that context, he is going to address the Police Director General's conference in Pune. And many officers, they work in the government and retire without seeing Delhi. And he said in that context, whenever the new batches of the IAS pass out come and they go out for Bharat Darshan, I think minute details of governance were in fact discussed today by the Prime Minister. And he discussed all aspects of socio-economic reforms, the problems in the society, the ills in the society which they have been trying to do. And overall, kind of a report card was presented to the people today by the Prime Minister. And as I said earlier, many of these things which government has done were not known to even people like us. And I could see from the audience reaction that they were really unaware of what some of the achievements which the Prime Minister was listing.
As you rightly said, Mr. Tandon, report card of the government, what they even propose to do now. But the underlying crux of the entire discussion, Mr. Tandon, in very brief from you, is that the government is also aiming to ensure ease of living for the people of the country. As you said about this fresh water supply to the households, about 15 crore odds, and there are other figures that the government is trying to ensure for a good urban living space and a good rural space. So these all are assimilated, and this is where the next about 4.5 years of this government are going to be.
Yes, he also mentioned about the job creation, and he specifically mentioned the tourism sector. He said tourism is one sector which provides employment to the poor people. Huge potential. He said 2 lakh crore foreign exchange has been earned by India through tourism alone. And in that context, he talked of the infrastructure which is being built, rail, roads and air infrastructure which is being developed, that will also boost tourism. So I think he was really concerned about the welfare of all sections of the society, and to the extent possible, his government is trying to achieve that so that no section is left out from the fruits of development. It should not be only one segment like rich are getting rich and poorer are getting poorer. So in that context, the focus was on overall all-round development of the society, particularly the neglected section of the society.
Right. We now look forward to a very fruitful, the last innings of the Parliament session, this time the winter session. We have now another week to go, very important bills to be introduced, and we hope that whatever the government is planning to do for ensuring the welfare of the public at large gets to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You are listening to a discussion on good governance. The participants were Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and Nilab Shrivastava, journalist. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com. You can also follow us on the News on AIR app for quick news updates.